Welcome to Al and Ha, two friends talking crypto and sports. Let's get it. This is Ha from the Al and Ha podcast. We are not financial advisors. Our views are our views. Please do your own research. Let's get it.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Al and Ha podcast. This episode, we're going to talk about the cryptocurrency space, just dive into some news and some updates on what's going on in the digital asset realm. Real quick, just price-wise, Bitcoin, obviously, January 26th, Bitcoin is at just over 32,000, so it's back down. Obviously, we talked about it was up around 41.
Consolidating.
Yeah, it's going to move, and that's the thing with this crypto space is you got to be able to. We've talked about it. Got to be able to fluctuate and roll with it. But Ethereum is up around $1,330, so it's up above its all-time high. I think it hit around 1,500 and it's creeped back down a little bit, and again consolidating. XRP has dropped a little bit down to 26.5 cents, which is expected at this point.
If you got it.
Yeah, it's one of those. We're the type of people that we're looking at it like we need to buy it at this price. But
yeah,
and then the Flare token, which we've touched on, was an airdrop, essentially free money for anybody that had XRP. What was it, before December 12th when they took the snapshot? Yeah, so we're essentially, if you had 5,000 XRP tokens, they're going to airdrop you 5,000 Flare tokens. They're at, when I checked it right before the podcast, they're right at about 1.25. So it's almost 1-to-1. And like we touched on, it's free money. And so it's hard to, obviously if you're getting into it now, a little late, but if you already have that XRP, that's definitely
about a snapshot. Yeah. So basically what you just doubled your back. There was a point at, I believe, a couple of days ago, within the last 24 to 48 hours, where the price actually jumped to 34 cents. So, and XRP itself was maybe like at 28.
Yeah, no, I saw that.
It's you guys you have to think that these people need to liquefy. Like we're getting a clearer picture on why, and this is why you got to listen to different people kind of break things down, and you can read about some things, but we're getting a clearer picture, and the picture is, and what we already knew is XRP wasn't for us,
right?
But when you think about how now, see, Coinbase decided that they were going to stop selling XRP because of the SEC in the United States, but for whatever reason they stopped all regions around the world from buying XRP. Then you think about, again, this coin is not for us.
Right,
this is a back-end wholesale coin.
Stopping the retail investors.
They're closing the doors on the retail investors. They guinea pigged us to basically get the system started. To get the system, because we were the ones that would buy it, kind of use it, sell it, get the system started. But now they've been signing central banks for the last 7 or 8 years.
Well, they've I think I saw something that again, I wish I would have it in front of me, but it was an article saying that since the lawsuit, Ripple signed like 15 partners. And so
new global partners.
It hasn't stopped the business. And again, it's a global thing. So it's not just the US. And that's where you would think that the global aspect of it, if the global aspect was really concerned about what the US was doing with it, they wouldn't be getting into it. And so
they're about to leave their ass behind if they don't jump on this ship. That's the kicker.
Right. And you have the Flare token, which is essentially an offshoot of
it's decentralized finance. And listen, we Al and I are still trying to figure out exactly what it's going to do, but what I do know is 1 month after Flare launches their decentralized applications, there's going to be another airdrop.
Right.
And this airdrop is going to be based off of how many Spark tokens you have. So with that airdrop, you're going to be able to change the D-Flare token into a Y-Flare token. And from that, you're going to be able to do yield mining and a whole bunch of other stuff that would basically is nothing but passive income.
Right.
And the sooner you get in, the bigger piece of the pie you're going to get of the income, of the passive income.
Right.
So and like for you Spark holders, hold on. I'm sorry,
go ahead.
But and for you Spark holders, it's not like as soon as that pops out, we're going to be tossing all our money in there. No. When it comes out, we're going to be testing it, though. We're going to be one of the first people to test it so we can start getting our piece of the pie. And the more we start understanding, we're probably going to do, videos on it, but understand that we are not the experts in this. We look at other people. We'll refer you to the other people, but this is an opportunity, a great opportunity to work on your passive income stream.
Definitely. And the crazy thing about Flare, we touched on, it's allowing XRP to work on the Ethereum network, which deals with the smart contracts, but they're diving in that Litecoin is going to be a part of that as well, which is another one of the digital or the cryptocurrencies. And so it's kind of interesting too. And like we've talked about, I can't remember the guy's name, but he came from Ripple and he branched off and started the Flare network and all that stuff. So it's all within that same ecosystem. And you touched on it as far as testing out, that's been talked about a lot in this industry as well. As far as the XRP, like us retail investors, we were just the ones essentially testing XRP, and them, us having the speculation market and all that stuff with the price fluctuations is allowing Ripple to test them sending it country to country and doing their cross-border payments and all that kind of stuff. And so that's where, at this point, guess what? It works. And so that's where they're like, we don't need to do it anymore. The government, governments or whoever, pull it out. And that's where, we're talking about, it's not for the retail investors. And I saw something today too.
Back-end wholesale.
I saw something today too that said that it was XRP's back-end wholesale and XLM's for the retail investors. And so that's where, you're going to start seeing some of that stuff go. But
and also with that, Davos, which is the annual meeting, World Economic Forum, where all the unelected globalists meet and talk about what they're going to do with us, is going on today. And yesterday, and it's going to continue on the rest of the week. And they're talking about climate change and carbon zero blockchain. Now, when they're talking about carbon zero blockchain, they're only talking about a few blockchains. The blockchains that don't mine, the blockchains that that have a proof of consensus and not proof of work. Like all this ecosystem environment, this is all tying in to XRP, XLM, these distributed ledger technologies that run on a fraction of the power that these proof of work, Ethereum and Bitcoin type coins run on.
It's speaking of the Davos, again, World Economic Forum holds it yearly, and there was I'm going to butcher his name, but it's Benoit Couillard, obviously probably French.
BIS.
He's the chief of BIS, and he came out and said, I'm quoting here, it's about having a technology that cuts across borders. Everyone agrees cross-border payments now are too slow and too costly. The top priority for the community is not CBDCs, which is the central bank digital currencies. The top urgent priority is to improve cross-border payments, in particular for low-income and developing economies. Like we've touched on before, like that is XRP, that is Ripple. And so it's one of those
use case.
And it's a use case. And real quick here, I'm going to play an interview. It's with Elizabeth Rosiello. Probably butchered her last name as well. She's the CEO and founder of AZA Finance, and she's talking to the governor of the Bank of England, Andrew Bailey, and she's talking about digital assets, and he talks about cross-border payments.
Are we here to stay now with digital currencies as part of the financial ecosystem? I mean, there are definitely advocates strongly believing this, and some on the opposite side. But has there been a turning point over the last 1 to 2 years? For instance, from COVID-19 or with the popularity of some cryptocurrencies, has sentiment turned a corner? For those of us who have been involved in technology for 7 years, we've seen sentiment ping pong back and forth. And where are we now with the thinking on how digital currency takes its place in the financial system? And I'd love to hear your perspective, not just on CBDCs, but on other forms of digital currencies. Governor Bailey, would you like to start us off?
Yes, thank you. And I think, first of all, I think that the lessons of history are fascinating here. I think the answer to your question is, are we here to stay? Is for digital innovation and payments, yes. There's been huge innovation in payments in recent years, and rightly so, but we still have some very big gaps to fill. Cross-border remittances, cross-border payments being the obvious one, where the cost of making payments is too high.
So again, talking about, here we are, you got the governor of Bank of England talking about that same issue, and who solves it? You know, those
and the former Bank of England governor was 2 years ago at shoot, I forgot what it was called, but 2 years ago he was talking about how we needed to move to a global, digital global reserve type currency away from the U.S. dollar.
Right.
This is the guy that preceded him.
Right.
That was saying this.
Well, and essentially it goes back to, again, leveling the playing field. And, we touched on before, the Bahamas digital dollar is 1-to-1 with the American dollar. And so you need something that's a reserve currency.
Sitting in the middle.
Level playing field, you need something sitting in the middle that essentially is going to hold its value. You talked about, back in the day, the gold standard, where people just can't print money. And that's the problem, because when we talk about all this money that we're printing in the United States, it affects everybody, that we're inflating our dollar.
Tripping dilemma.
And yeah, it's
look up the tripping dilemma.
Funny you say that. Yes. But yeah, I was going to touch on that a little bit too, but it's crazy that it's the dilemma, man. We start printing money and it affects everybody else, and people don't think about that. But yeah, so
here's the thing. When I know people that listen to Al and I are just kind of like, yeah, I hear what they're saying, and I can probably see that happening. There are some coincidences, but the clip he just played was from the head of the Bank of England,
right, talking
talking about the problems and the issues that they're dealing with cross-border remittances and how they need to tackle that. And Al and I, when we started this podcast, was basically telling you about a coin that handles cross-border remittances that's meeting with central banks around the world. And this is, I'm thankful that Al found this sound bar that he can put clips and stuff on, so that it's just not me and me. Like, this is the kind of stuff that we've been hearing for a while.
Right. And
and that we're trying to bring to you guys.
And it's even like, again, talking about that Benoit Cure guy, who's the chief of the BIS. Like, the BIS is the Banks of International Settlement. And so
Central Bank of Central Banks.
Yeah, they're the one. But the thing is, Banks of International Settlement, so they're the ones that are dealing with, somebody in the US sending money to England. And so when they're talking about the major priority, and then you sit back and look at, the Ripple and XRP issue, it seems to be, you go back to it, did Jay Clayton take one for the team, and, and start this whole thing up, because here we go. Like, it needs to be clarity. And
we're at the end game.
About, Hester Pierce, which we haven't really talked about,
Crypto
AKA
mom.
the crypto mom, as everybody knows her. She's one of the commissioners of the SEC. And she's come out multiple times and said that the U.S. government needs to force regularity and clarity on the digital asset space. And when you're seeing these things, and that's what, like you're saying, that but the crazy thing is why, like, people, again, like we touched on, don't do your own research, but they'll listen to me playing a soundbite, which is fine. And I'm happy if that's going to help you go look into something else or help you believe that it's happening. Cool. That's what we're doing it for. But it's just, there's so much stuff going on in the government that people have no idea what's going on.
Yeah. And if you pay attention to it, you can benefit, because honestly, as of right now, they're still not in. Right. Because if they were in, then the price wouldn't be 28 cents.
Right. Oh yeah.
We're all going to know when they get in. Because you got to think, all the retail people, we're maxed out. Like, people have been building since 2013 maybe, and we're at 2021. We have done what we can do. We can push it to $1, $2, $3, maybe $4, whatever the case may be. That's all we can do. It's on them now, and they're the one pushing the narrative. Obviously, right. As we just played you a clip from the guy from the Bank of England.
Right. And
you have to do your research, guys. You have to look into this.
And you go down the rabbit holes of people. We've talked about it. Like, what could they do with it? Could they treat it like gold and essentially pop the price and put it at whatever they want, make it a stable coin? Yeah, they could. I mean, that's the thing. You could
whatever they want.
You could sit there and see it, and it's kind of crazy. But yeah. So other news this week. So Janet Yellen, she was Biden's choice for Treasury Secretary. She got sworn in this week.
Yep.
She's crypto friendly.
Yes.
And been multiple times talking about it and talking about, again, things need to be done, clarity, what issues they solve, and that sort of thing. And still, we're waiting on Gary Gensler. Obviously, he's been nominated as the head of
taught a blockchain class at MIT.
Right, and he actually, I was going to talk about that. So he's been nominated as the head of the SEC, and he had a video, and I didn't pull it, but talking about the dilemma that you were talking about, the
Triffin dilemma.
Yeah, the Triffin dilemma. And he touches on it. It's, and this is obviously a few years ago, him talking about it. And so obviously the space and technology just extremely moves fast, and new technology gets pushed out. But he talks about it, and it's like, could there be something in the future that deals with all three of these things and helps with all three of these things? And he's like, absolutely. And talking about a cryptocurrency, and it's one of those
real quick. The basis of the Triffin dilemma is if one country holds the world reserve currency, if they do any type of changes to their national currency, which happens to be the reserve currency. So obviously, we're talking about the United States and the U.S. dollar. Right. If we print money or we do whatever we do with our money, it affects all the other countries. Because if we're doing something that benefits us in the United States, it's hurting other countries, and then they have to react however monetarily they have to do it to compensate for whatever we do. So that's kind of the basis of the Triffin dilemma. All right, man, go ahead.
But yeah, it touches on scalability.
Well, it takes the pressure off, because basically what XRP will do with the Triffin dilemma, from how I understand it, is that there's something that sits in the middle that each country can do whatever the hell they want. So if you want to print, so if the country of Al wants to print money to be damned, to usher out to your citizens, and when you decide to trade with the country of Ha, it doesn't matter if you print it to be damned, because there's that neutral asset that says, okay, I need this amount of value for this trade to work.
Yeah.
So
that's essentially he's describing a bridge asset, essentially.
Yeah, but that's basically how I understand. I believe that's the gist of it. But XRP basically handles that, because it takes that pressure away and then puts each country on its own. That's why when you're hearing the level of the playing field, like if you Google search, level the playing field, you'll see how many politicians, bankers, they all are saying it's like a narrative that they're pumping.
Right.
Level the playing field, level the playing field. You got to pick up on the buzzwords.
So yeah, Gary Gensler, obviously Biden's nomination for the SEC, but he, like you said, talked about the dilemma, the Triffin dilemma. Essentially, it's when one country, like you had said, being a global reserve currency, when we do things, it affects international issues long term. And so that's one of those things, like when you sit down and look at it, like XRP helps solve that issue, and putting everybody on a level playing field and having something be a global reserve currency helps level the playing field, so you're not having those issues. But yeah, so I'm assuming at some point here within the next week or so, 2 weeks maybe, we'll see that Gensler gets sworn in.
Yeah,
as the head of the SEC. And it's kind of funny. We sit here and talk about the banks and stuff. That one of the CEOs of, was it the CEO of Bank of America? I mean, or one of the high ups in Bank of America, like in an article, made a comment about it's been like a quiet known that Ripple and XR and Bank of America are partners.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in the
Well,
industry,
Alex Cobb dropped that about over a year ago. Remember,
Right.
he snuck that video out.
Yeah,
He's like,
and-
"I told me not to drop it, but I'm like, F it, I'm gonna do it."
yeah, they've been quiet about it, and she brought it up in an interview and mentioned Ripple, you know, and their cross border payments and solving those issues and working with them. So, and then
Bank of America, huh?
yeah, and then you have Citibank partnering with Volante you know, to establish ISO the
Six-
20
$6 trillion.
2022.
$6 trillion a day, huh?
Yeah, and
That's what
I think
Volante
you posted.
processes.
I think I saw you post that on Facebook, and then like you've touched on, Wells Fargo has been kind of known as well, not necessarily a partner with Ripple, but just in talks with
Oh,
Ripple.
we don't know.
Yeah, we have no idea, but you know,
But,
as
yeah.
far as you know, so again, working with those central banks and other news too, like in being global, Ripple partnering with Lulu Exchange, which is essentially an exchange in like the Middle East, partnering with them and Federal Bank to essentially become the way to send cross-border payments from the UAE to India.
Well, yeah, and part of Ripple's strategy is to go back to Wells Fargo and let them know that.
Right.
See, what people don't understand is when this starts going. So, geez, Louise, what central bank just said they were going to launch? One of these central banks said they were going to launch.
I remember seeing.
And
Was it?
with gosh darn it. Well, once one of them does it,
Yeah.
they all have to do it.
Right.
It's going to put the pressure on all of them because now this cat is getting all these savings. They're getting the 50 to 60% savings using, and it's getting there with no time or whatever the case may be.
Why use them when I could use this other group or this other bank, and it's way cheaper, it's faster.
Adapt or die.
Yeah, and so it's one of those, like, either, like you said, adapt or die is perfect. Like either you do it or you're getting missed out and you're going to lose out on it. I think it was it the bank? Was it like somewhere in France, maybe?
That's going to irritate me. But yeah, it's one of these central banks just launched, and you know, you think that people think the U.S. is far behind, but then you start thinking, okay, USDT Tether has a $1.4 trillion lawsuit, you know, coming down the pike here on February 22nd, which happens to be the same day that Ripple is talking about their lawsuit with the judge and the SEC. And then on top of that, you have USDC, which is the US dollar coin, which is now jumped in with Circle, and now it seems like they're merged. We already know they're merged with Stellar, which is XLM, because XRP, XLM are basically brother sister.
Right.
And then now we found out that I think they're working with like Fedwire.
Yeah.
So all the pieces are coming together if you're paying attention.
Which
and they're not. You're not going to get an email.
No,
and they're not going to tell you on the news.
And for people that don't know, like Fedwire is essentially, isn't that the Fed payment?
Yeah, it's their
system.
It's the Feds. Yeah, it's their Feds. The Fed's payment system that honestly is supposed to be for every person in the country. They supposedly have a wallet for us already. The transition from the fiat to the USTD, or the central bank digital currency for the United States, is going to be a seamless one, and that's how we're going to be able to send money, you know, cross border,
right,
for cheap.
And you're
using the XLM.
You're seeing
because
news,
that's for retail, which is
like, yeah, and you're seeing news like you said with the Fed starting to come out with stuff for real-time payments. The Netherlands central bank has recognized Ripple for their real-time payment infrastructure. HSBC subsidiary is confirmed to be using Ripple. Like it's so like like we've talked about, it's across the globe. Like it's not like it is as funny as it sounds. Like when you're just kind of going about your business, you forget how big the world is and how much money is out there and how much like as much as the US kind of pushes their foot forward and in technology and all this other stuff, you with something like the financial system, it has to be worldwide. And when you start seeing other countries that are like, you know what, we're not going to deal with US, the US dollar, they're inflating it, they're doing all this stuff, and sanctions and all that kind of stuff. It talks about level playing field all the time. And real quick, I have a quick little clip from Christine Lagarde, who we've talked about on the podcast before. She's the head of
Lagarde.
Yeah, she's the head of the
ECB.
In the European Union.
European system. Yep.
And she talks about central bank digital currencies and just digital currencies in general.
Digital currency, where it has been piloted, and there is only one which is clearly now launched in a very small country, but it is piloted on a fairly large scale in China, is of use and of service to all citizens. So it is not something that is good for the elite, or is good for the young, or is good for some versus others. If it is well done and if it is well implemented, it would be of service to all citizens.
So again, talk about leveling the playing field. Like she basically just saying it right there. It's not just good for the elite, not just good for the institutions. It's good for the normal everyday citizens.
And then what you guys need to understand is she is the head of the European Central Union, European Central Bank, and there's 17 countries that are part of that union. So that's 17 central banks that basically all have a say so, but she's the head of it. And she talked about China developing their central bank. We know Japan is live. We know Singapore is live. We know the Middle East is live.
Right.
So what do you guys think is going to happen here?
Well, and I don't know. I haven't heard the whole interview, so I don't know if she was referring to the small country, what she was referring to. I mean, she could be referring to the Bahamas or, whatever. But I mean, the fact that we've touched on it before, like China is like giving out digital yuan to their citizens to be used everywhere. And we've seen videos on Twitter of people like from China posting, like showing their phone and then buying stuff at like a liquor store with their digital wallet, with their digital digital yuan. And so it's being piloted, and we've talked about this, like, we touched on earlier in this podcast, like XRP, and essentially like it being used, like we're being used as like this quote unquote guinea pigs, is to make sure it all works. So they talk about, how many transactions they've had on the ledger.
Over 60 million, no problems,
settlement in 3 to 4 seconds, like very low fees. And so that was kind of like, we're the testing ground, and now they know it works. And so it's coming to a point like, okay, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And
the win is starting that win window is closing.
It's definitely closing.
Davos, like I said, Davos is this week where they discuss all this kind of stuff.
Right.
And the narrative ain't going away. That's the genie is out of the bottle, whatever little, however you want to say it, phrase it, it's out, and nothing is going to stop it. And the big money has not gotten in. Like you look at Bitcoin, and hell, Bitcoin 3 months ago was closing in on $20,000.
Right.
And I don't own any Bitcoin. Actually, I do. Yeah. I own Bitcoin big because of
Cash App. I have Cash App. I think I have like 70. I'm like I was gonna say, I think I'm like at 15 or 16 bucks of Bitcoin.
Yeah, but the fact of the matter is Bitcoin always leads in the beginning. Okay, especially during alt season. Now during the alt that usually leads alt season is Ethereum. And as I touched on earlier, Ethereum already cracked 1,500, and it's at its all-time high now.
Right.
So it's coming, and you got all this news swirling around, and like Al and I were talking off. Of course, we were talking off camera, but we were talking off camera. Just trying to keep up with all of this.
It's hard.
It's hard. Like we're bringing you stuff, but there's so much more.
Well, we've talked about, we obviously, I haven't watched as much. I know with you back at work, I tend to just stay on Twitter more so, because again, following everybody, Kevin Cage, DAI, which is Digital Asset Investor, King Solomon, Brad Kimes, XRP, Crypto Wolf, crypto. Like, there's so many. Like, you just go on Twitter and you could, read. I'm more of like, I'll read it because you could go and watch YouTube videos. These guys, that's the thing we're touching on. Like, these guys post YouTube videos daily, and so you sit there like we're doing here we are doing a weekly podcast essentially at this point, and it's like I was just touching on with you. Like, I'm trying to like take notes and like keep track of what's going on, so when we get to the podcast, we're not just like looking for stuff, which we still are, because it's like touching on that dilemma thing. I was like, crap, I was going to pull that up and I didn't freaking do it. But you get to a point where it's like there's so much news coming out, and especially to do it for a week, it's like you can't keep up. And so that's the crazy part, is it's moving so fast. It's just really hard to keep up with.
And you always got to keep in like, you got to think they are closing us out. However they do it, don't necessarily stare at, the magic show and the distraction of the explosions and the mirrors moving and trying to figure out where the wire. Don't worry about all that. Just understand the big picture is they're locking us out.
Right.
And if you don't, go ahead, man.
I was just gonna say, like, so we, and people could think what they want to think. They could think we're crazy because, and obviously all these other XRP, the quote unquote XRP army, like, we're all crazy. But you sit there and think about, why would they lock us out, and they're doing this and they're doing that. The crazy part is so FedWire, FedNow is essentially the government, like, real-time payment system service, and there's news out regarding it, and I totally forgot, I just found it, but it's so when I say ACI Worldwide to you, like, we both know they're a Ripple partner. And again, this is just going through, obviously, you years of research and me just freaking cramming, and sometimes I forget and have to look it up, but like, there's so many partners with Ripple of using their fintech and their technology, which essentially, again, we've touched on, runs most efficiently with XRP. And so when you have ACI Worldwide is working with FedNow for their real-time payment system, and it's just one of those things, like, you sit there and look at it, well, wait a minute, XRP is being, Ripple's being sued by the SEC. So then why is the U.S. Federal Reserve's pilot program, essentially they're being worked with a Ripple partner? And so you're going to sit there and you're going to have ACI Worldwide, which is going to use Ripple's technology, and more likely going to use XRP once everything happens, because at this point, obviously the money's not a high enough token to be doing much, but it's just one of those, like, you sit there and look at it and, like, again, do your research on stuff, and you start seeing these things, and it's like, that's where you start sitting there, and it's like, well, why are they getting us out of it? Yeah, why are they suing when they're using Ripple? And so
after 8 years,
it just is
like, it doesn't add up. That's what I'm saying. It's you sit here, and then when you read about all the part, and the guys, XRP Arcade and status.hr. Go to those two sites and look at the 48 of the top 50 central banks, and look at how the infographics, and look at the infographics on how how XRP is carbon zero. Like, you look at all this stuff, and then you hear these globalists talk about the monetary system changing, and they're saying the exact same thing. Then you read the articles about the central bank going live. Then you read the article about how FedWire is partnering with a company that uses Ripple's technology. It's just like, well, what is going on here?
Yeah,
And you can choose to pass it off like it's just coincidence. But after 3 years of a shit ton coincidences, like maybe it's not a coincidence.
I don't know if it's such a coincidence or not. That's the thing we've obviously touched on. Like, we do so much research and we've touched on rabbit holes and stuff before, but like, and conspiracy theories or speculation. But when you sit there and you're doing this speculation job, you know, obviously for me, it's more speculation with price and all that kind of stuff. Like when you're seeing these articles and CEOs and chiefs of this one and, you know, high ups in this bank and
trillions of dollars,
and they're all talking, they're all on paper, they're in interviews talking about it. At some point it doesn't become speculation, it just becomes actual fact that they're talking about it. And so that's kind of the crazy thing. And
this is the most elaborate, well-planned 10-year scam,
right,
just to fool us little retail people out of our little money,
right?
Unless it's that,
yeah,
then
and we've touched on it before, like with the banks going, you know, they're like piloting their CBDCs, you know, it's just a matter of time. It's not hard when you have other countries already doing it for other people to catch up, because there's the technology there.
Countries.
Yeah, there's the technology is there. It's not a matter of like they're trying to create it from scratch. It's already created. And so you have these, you know, for JP Morgan to have their own digital currency and Wells Fargo to have their own digital currency or whatever, it
doesn't solve any problems.
But it doesn't, it's not like it's going to take 5-10 years for them to have that. And that's where I'm getting at with that. There's already, when you have like I said, the sand dollar, the Bahama sand dollar, you have the digital yuan, you have all these other tokens that are there. It doesn't take long for those people, because all the people in that technology industry are familiar with each other. And so like we've touched on, you have the Flare network, you have XRP, you have XLM. They're all, it's at some point we're all at Ripple and all with XRP. And so you sit there and you start, they start piecing stuff around, and it's like, you know, it doesn't
people
take,
from the
it's not going to
treasury
take
moving
long.
to actual Ripple.
Yeah.
You know, you got people from the treasury moving for Ripple, people from Swift moving to Ripple, you know, people moving from Ripple going out to, you know, different positions in government. It's just way too much. And then you think about, you know, the G7. I mentioned the G7 earlier. There's a G7, there's a G20, there's a G30. Basically, the G7 are the top 7 countries on the planet.
Right.
And the United States is the head of the G7. Other countries in the G7 will be England, China, Japan. I know there's more. I don't know exactly what the other ones are. But the fact of the matter is England has already said XRP is a currency. Japan has already said XRP is a currency. You know, China is already doing their CBDC and piloting it and going whole 9 with it. The United States is supposed to be the leader of that G7 group.
Right.
Like,
so you have to think, like,
put it together.
We touched on before, they're not sitting back, not doing anything. Like, they're not going to allow, like, the U.S. is not going to allow these other countries to put this all together and then all of a sudden be like, oh shit, I guess we better get on that. Like, there's a reason why we're not piloting it. Like, let's be clear here. Like, we're not going to be the guinea pig for this, as far as like putting out the digital dollar. But, you know, and I saw an article too, it touched on, like, it's kind of like when we've talked about it, you're not going to know, because everything's essentially digital already. Like, you know, you go do your credit card, it's all digital. And so it's not, that's why I was saying it's not that far off to sit down and think about it. So real quick too, I just kind of want to touch on, so David Schwartz, we've talked about, he's a CTO at Ripple, one of the creators of XRP, was involved with Bitcoin early on. And this is just a quick clip of him talking about the difference between XRP and Bitcoin.
approaches, but one of the big advantages of an account approach is, like, let's say you're a charity and you've told people to send payment to a particular Bitcoin address. And let's say you have somebody who processes those payments for you, and you want to change who processes them. You're like, I don't want this guy to process them, I want some other guy to process them. You actually have to change your receiving address. You have to give everybody a new address to send money to, because the other guy, the guy you don't want to use anymore, has the keys to that address. When you have an account on a ledger, that account has properties and you can change them. So one property can be who can sign for that account, and you could actually change it without having to move funds or give a new receiving address. And so some of the properties that we added to the ledger were built around that those two fundamental differences: the fact that you don't have a dictator at the moment, and the fact that you have an account that you can manage. And that led to some other design decisions down the road. But that's sort of the core of the.
So again, we talked about, the early creators. There's multiple people within, the Bitcoin that created it, like David Schwartz is one of them, that moved on to XRP, and they were essentially XRP were finding solutions for the issues that they had with Bitcoin. And so what he's kind of talking about there, and for somebody that isn't really into the industry, even for us listening to it, it's kind of, you got to listen to it a few times, but essentially he's talking about at the beginning of it, like Bitcoin, it put it into like if you wanted to, he's saying like you wanted to have somebody else send it, you would have Wells Fargo at some point doing it. Like, I don't want to be with Wells Fargo anymore. I want to go to Chase. And so you literally have to change your bank. You have to change everything. It's just like when you have a debit card. Like, I've had this instance happen couple times recently, where debit card gets stolen, and I got to go through everything that I make payments on and change all the freaking card numbers. I got to change everything because that's where it's coming from, or that's where it's going to. Whereas the XRP ledger, there's not that issue. It's got one address.
And you change it, and you change it on the ledger.
Right. And it does it automatically. And so that was one of the issues that they had with Bitcoin was, again, going back to kind of the explanation of going from Chase to Wells Fargo, going from Chase to Bank of America, having to change everything, having different account numbers, having different routing numbers, having all these different issues. Whereas XRPL, everything being on the ledger, you don't have that issue anymore.
Because you're in control.
Right.
What a novel idea that is.
Again, one of those things where Bitcoin, we talked about, there's not really a governing, there's
no one to call when it goes south.
Right. And that's kind of where Ripple is kind of taken on with XRP, is that if there's an issue or whatever, they kind of, but because they have the escrow and all that stuff technically, but, and you have there's people are known, like you could go follow David Schwartz on Twitter, and he does interviews with some of the guys, and
the YouTube channel, and he's constantly
posting stuff. He's a good,
smart, highly follow. Intelligent.
Yeah.
Highly intelligent.
As you could tell by that clip, he's just railing that stuff off like it's nothing. And we're like, wait, what? But yeah, so let's dive into a couple of exchanges and that sort of thing. So obviously XRP has been pulled off of most exchanges, or at least delisted.
Yeah.
And so there's really, in the United States, I don't want to put like the exact number on it, but the only one that we use that we can use it as an on and an off ramp for XRP is Uphold.
Yeah,
and
Uphold.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I was gonna say Uphold. Yeah, I've been doing some research. I've been trying to find different wallets, different ways, and basically what I found is there's a complicated way, and there's a real easy way, but it comes with a caveat. So Uphold, you can deposit an ACH, which means you can link your bank account, deposit straight from your bank account, get it in there by the XRP. But once you make that deposit with the ACH, it has to sit on their exchange for 65 days. And some of you are like, that's nothing. Who cares? We are interest horse. So
right.
we as soon as we get it, we try to get that interest on it.
And the thing is most people, there's a lot of people that aren't. And so, if you're just trying to get on it, then Uphold, the 65-day thing, like you said, it's not that big of a deal. But yeah,
if you go 500 with a debit card, you can move it right then and there. So that's the limit. So if you use your debit card, it doesn't go over
500 a day.
You can't go over 500 a day. But you can move it right away.
I think that's fairly new, because I even remember, is it right away, or is there like a 3 to 5 day waiting period still?
Well, it still might be the 3 to 5 day,
Okay.
but like when it clears, you don't have
It
to
just doesn't
do a
have the
cool down
65
period.
hold.
Yeah, the 65-day hold.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then
I'm not sure. Yeah, and I haven't really looked in. Not that they would give us any info anyway, but I haven't looked into Uphold as far as why they're doing that. I'm assuming it's because they want you to get their debit card and they just want you to use them. They
actually, I
actually,
read up on it. It's because they say it's to cut down on the nefarious actions of the
got you.
ACH transaction.
Yeah, because
So whatever.
it's so much money you can put. I think it's what is it, 25,000
Yeah.
a day or something.
Yeah,
And-
it's a little more than that 5. So
Right, and the thing with Uphold, and I've had a couple friends talk about it, and they're talking to them about it. But like Uphold, they do have like, they obviously have the cryptocurrency, some of them, and some stable coins. They have digital gold, they have digital silver,
yeah,
digital
and
platinum.
you get physical too. Physical gold
you
as
could
well.
get physical
silver.
Yeah, you could get
Got
that on
some.
there as well.
Got a couple ounces.
You could get fractional stocks on there, so you could buy $50 worth of Amazon stock if you wanted to, or whatever. And the nice thing is they do have that debit card, which I haven't used
back.
I haven't used a ton recently, but
Uphold. I mean, not the Uphold, the freaking Cash Card, man.
Yeah,
I've been all over that free Bitcoin.
Yeah. But but the thing with Uphold, I mean, it's super easy, and honestly, like it's one of those things. Like I remember, so being obviously in Omaha, and it depending on regionally, I don't know what the deal is with the laws and stuff. But like here, I can't, for whatever reason, I still can't get like certain stable
That's
coins.
A card on cost. Oh, okay. Oh, I got you. I'm sorry.
No, I just can't buy like certain stable coins. I can't buy fractional stocks at all here in Omaha.
Either. I can't get this fractional stock. Can you get USDC?
Not yet. That was the one I think we had touched on before. We had talked about before just on the phone, but so it depending on regionally where you're at, they have those options. I don't know what the holdup is. The funny thing is they have a Twitter. And so I remember like when we were talking about that, I commented wrote a tweet to them, like tagged them on a tweet and asked them like, when are you guys going to get USDC? When can I get it in Omaha? And it was like probably 20 minutes later they had a respond. They didn't have an answer. They were just like, oh, we don't know for sure on a timeline of that yet, but we're working on it, blah blah blah. But the fact that they responded to my ass,
that's
like,
the cool thing about Twitter.
Like
but that's the cool thing about Twitter. Like when you like it can get bad if you get in arguments and all that, but that you don't use Twitter for that. It's a great source to get news.
Right.
News is the only thing I use Twitter for is to get my news. And then outside of that, I leave everything else alone.
Right. And so, like we said, Uphold currently, as far as what we use, I don't even know if there's anything else in the U.S. that.
Well, okay. Well, here's the long way. So what you can do is you can use a normal Coinbase account, purchase USDC. Okay, it's going to have to sit on Coinbase for 5 days or 6 days until it clears. Once it clears, you can move that USCD or USDC to BitTrue and buy your XRP.
Right. And so that's kind of the long way.
That's a 5 day. Yeah, that's a long way.
So there is still like BitTrue, you can still buy it, which is an exchange. It's not an on or an off ramp. You have to move it onto an on or off ramp to get your money out. But they're, like you said, the long way. And truthfully, like you had touched on earlier, if you don't mind it sitting there and in reality, the only reason why we move it, like you touched on, is the interest aspect of it. When you're earning 5.3% annually on stuff, or 5% annually, and it's compounding daily. We're trying to get some of that going, and
all of that, no some, all
right. and the crazy part is people. I was thinking about this the other day. You sit there, XRP, is at 26.5 cents, and it's like, oh, what, 5.3%. Well, that ain't shit. Well, it's they're also giving those percentages off of Ethereum and all these, so depending on how much you have,
the coin. Yeah,
right, and it's the coin. It has nothing to do with the price. And so if XRP or XLM or VeChain or any of these other tokens that they have, their annual percentage, like their, BitTrue calls it the Power Piggy. Nexo is just their wallet essentially when you have
just deposit automatically.
Right. and so they have that. And so if XRP was $100, you'd be earning 5.3% annually. And so it's one of those like, depending on what the price does, it's like passive income. We talk about that, like your money making money. And even you touched on USDC and some of those other ones, like some of the stable coins are on there too, where you can just earn, you essentially, you're earning 10%,
10.3% on your on stable coin through Powder Piggy,
which is essentially at $1. And it to sit there, and obviously when you sit there and think about it, like you got to have $10,000 to make whatever it is, but
$2.83 a day.
Right. So
Or
obviously,
82 cents a day.
but,
I know.
but when you sit and think about it, like what is it doing in your savings account?
Oh, you'll be like if you got $2.83 over the course of the entire year.
Right. And so that's
with
where
$10,000 in there.
You know, I was telling Ricky Galvin about that.
And it's compounding daily.
Right. And even if you didn't want to mess with the fluctuations of the crypto space, like the stable coins are pretty stable. Like they don't fluctuate. Like I've said before, they're 99.9978 and they'll fluctuate up to like 1.0026, and they kind of stay right around that dollar range. Whereas obviously
USDC is going to be our CBDC. It's going to be our dollar. So like if you have dollars sitting in straight US dollars in the fiat, you can transfer that over to USDC and feel pretty confident that, listen, we are not financial advisors, and make sure you play that shit at the beginning of this, but you can feel pretty confident that if you had your money in Tether right now facing a $1.4 trillion lawsuit from the federal government coming on the 22nd of February, I'd be a little nervous about that. But the USDC that you just heard is going to be working with the Fed Wire, our Federal Reserve, that seems kind of safe. So you can put it in that, drop it in the Power Piggy, or drop it in the next one, get 8% compounding daily.
Right.
There's a better way.
And that's the crazy part. We're talking about like these tokens and the investments and the interest rates and all that stuff. The thing that you touched on, which is a good point, is it's earning the token. It's not the amount of dollars. So you're not 5.3% off the amount of, $10,000. You're earning 5.3% off of 10,000 tokens. And so if you're for every, I think, so just bear with me here for a second. On BitTrue, Bitcoin currently is at 5.3% for their like yearly investment. And so when you sit back and look at it, for every 10,000 Bitcoin you have, you earn 1.45 per day. So if you sit and think about it,
do it for XRP. Do it for XRP.
But I'm just saying, if you sit back and look at it, like if you bought Bitcoin back in the day when it was 20 cents, like XRP is now, and you just held on to it, which I'm sure there's obviously people that did, there's obviously people that cashed out, but you could be making $40,000 a day just off passive income. And so that's where, like, again, you're touching on it's the token. It's not the amount of money that, and as much as it doesn't, and XRP is the same. It's 1.45 per day.
1.45, but that's the example. Like you got that 1.45, and then so you figure, just round numbers. Let's just go. If you got 30,000 of them, so 1.45 times 3, which is roughly 4.5 ish. Yeah, 4 point little less than 4. I mean, a little point less than 4.5. But if say the price does this is when you have to speculate. Because if you don't speculate, then you don't have any idea of what you really hold. So then when I say you do your research, you look at like the companies that like the AIS that you mentioned earlier, and then you said Volante. Like I know Volante does $6 trillion a day in volume. And then they're saying Ripple is going to replace Swift 2.0. I know that's $6 trillion a day in volume. And then we're talking the FX market. I know that's $2 trillion a day. And then I haven't even mentioned the derivative market. And then on top of that, there's only 100 billion coins. So when we speculate 3 to 4 digit coins, it's not because we're just pulling those numbers out of our asses. It's because there is a shit ton of money that these institutions need this for. We want it, they need it.
Right.
So when if the coin does get to say $1,000 a coin, and you're earning 4 of these coins a day every day,
7
then
days a
it
week.
just got real.
Yep.
7 days a week, 365 days a year, and then that's compounding.
Right.
Because what you got to wrap your head around is when the institutional money goes in, and when the price rise happens, it ain't coming back down.
Nope.
It's over at that point.
Yeah, it may fluctuate a little bit, but it'll get to a point where, and that's where we've kind of touched on with, we haven't really dove into it too much, but we've talked about it before as far as XRP being labeled a stable coin at some point.
Yeah, global stable coins.
Once they start using it for the cross-border payments and everything, and the catch there is with it transferring within 3 to 4 seconds, it's stable enough. Like it doesn't. You're going to send it at this price, and it settles in 3 to 4 seconds.
It doesn't move enough in that
It's not
time.
gonna move
It doesn't move enough in
time.
that time.
And so, but yeah, again, that passive income, and when you sit and think about it, and even if you get, like, again, touching on that, like you get up to, say you get 4 a day, and it pops to $100, like that's $400 a day.
$100.
7 days a week, 365 days a year, and so it's
Do
one
the
of
math.
those. Yeah, do the math on it. And that's where we touch on like these smaller tokens, the return on investment. In order to double your money in Bitcoin, it's got to go to, I mean, shoot, it was at 42,000, whatever it was, and it's now back down to 32,000. So in order to double your money now, you have to get to 64,000. And so it's one of those, like, that's going to take a little bit more money to get to. And obviously,
And then
it's going
with Bitcoin, but with Bitcoin, people need to wrap their head around is Bitcoin is kind of like a stock. It's based off of, is there going to be somebody else that's going to buy it more expensive than I bought it? And then it keeps going. And then when it gets to a certain level,
Nobody's
then they
gonna buy
start
it.
selling. And then
Yeah.
what you got to understand is XRP, XLM, XBC, the
VeChain.
VeChain, they are going to get pushed by the
Algo.
utility.
Yeah.
Algo, yeah. These coins are going to get pushed by utility, meaning it's going to be these institutions running this volume and running the stuff that they need to get done. They need to get done. That's going to push the price.
Right.
It's not going to be speculators or anything like that. It's going to be institutions driving it. And when it starts, it's only going to keep being bigger and bigger and bigger until it's 100%. Thanks Skynet and the Terminator. Like, all bullshit aside,
Yep.
it's going to be in everything.
Skynet is
Globally,
self-aware. man.
financially, yeah.
It's going that, and like we've touched on. I mean, obviously we've like with the crypto space, you get these people that try to pick dates and, this happens this day, and we've done that. We've looked at dates of like certain things happening, and
None of them come true.
Yeah, and at some point it's going to happen, and it's one of those, like you said, it's all speculation until something comes true. And I've said it multiple times on here. Beginning of the year, it's all speculation that the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl, and they may, but Tampa may win as well. And I could have said beginning of the year that I felt like the Rams were going to win the Super Bowl, and everybody would have called me crazy or whatever, and unless you're a Rams fan, and it could happen. You just never know. But with this, the difference is there's so much more
Evidence.
Well, the evidence, but like when you look at like sports and all that kind of stuff, and as much as like I keep comparing it to that, they always say like that's why you play the game. Like there's so many other factors with that type of stuff. Whereas there's so much evidence that it's happening. It's hard not to sit there and speculate. Like we talk about it all the time, like speculating price on it and what it's
Like,
going to do.
If you decided to go look into this, and I encourage people to do this, go look into XRP and Ripple and XLM and the partnerships, and then I want you to try and convince yourself that this is not happening.
Right.
Not that it is. Just look at all the evidence and say to yourself, okay, yeah, they really, this is not going to happen. There's no way this is going to happen.
And that's the hard part is like I said, when I first got into it, it's like you start diving into it and it just becomes like, this is happening. Like you can't, it's very hard to sit there and look at all this stuff and be like, nah, there's no way. Like it's not happening.
They're lying.
They're lying to
It's
you.
a hoax.
Like, all these articles and all this stuff, they're lying, and it's just really hard to look at that. And we just, it's God, man. Again, hopefully we'll start to do a little bit better job of. I'm gonna try to keep track of some more news and kind of bulk stuff together. But there's just so much stuff coming out.
But here's the thing, like if they want all that type of, listen, I love the fans that we have. I know it's not many of you guys, and I love you guys. But the fact of the matter is we are bringing you, like we both work and all that kind of stuff, and we're going to try to make the show, as best we can. But the fact of the matter is you shouldn't trust us anyway.
Right. Go do your own research.
Go do it. We can guide you, and we're going to get better because we do strive to get better. We're football coaches. But the fact of the matter is if we piqued your interest to this point, now is the time. Not financial advice, but you should dive into some research and see what the hell is going on.
Well, and the funny thing is, I have a couple friends that literally they're just like, they see Bitcoin. And so they're like, I need to get into some crypto. Like they have no clue. You know what I mean? Like they're just haven't listened to the podcast, or, one has, but they're just like, they see Bitcoin and where it's at and what, all the news that they were getting on it. And it's like, I got to get it. And that's where I was talking about return on investment. Like they're, you put in none of there may be a couple, but a lot of my friends can't go buy a fucking Bitcoin right now. Like a majority
can't go buy Bitcoin,
right? You can't just drop $32,000 to buy a full Bitcoin at this point. And so the return on investment is, say you drop $500 into a Bitcoin, it takes so much to get to $1,000. And so that's where we're saying, if you go into
the same $500 in XRP, if it got back to where it was before this SEC bullshit,
you triple your money.
3x,
right?
3x to get back to where it was, and then it needs to go.
Right.
Everything else has already went, so it needs to go back to where it was, and then do its initial run.
And that's the thing is could your $500 in Bitcoin double? Yeah, but it's going to take a lot more effort just to get to that $1,000. And so when you sit and look at it, like you said, put $500, even if you put it into XLM or any of those other token, algo or anything, even like XDC that's like fractional right now. Like in order to double your investment, like it's just so much of a better shot for you to make money on something like that, because there's so much more room to grow. Whereas like Bitcoin, even if Bitcoin, as we touched on, like Bitcoin,
got to $100,000. Even if it got to $100,000.
Yeah, say it gets down, so it triples, it 3x's, and so your $500 investment's $1,500. And so, but if you look at like some of these smaller tokens with utility, and say they got to $1,000, like you would be astronomical of what you're making on that, because you're getting, again, you have $500, you're getting it, say it's at 25 cents, you're getting 4 per dollar. So you're looking at 2,000 tokens there, and now they're going from 25 cents to $1,000. That's a lot of fucking money. And so again, return on investment, do your research. There's tons of projects in this space.
Yes.
That
HBAR is another one.
HBAR is another one that's exploded. The interesting thing, I was going to touch on this earlier, is if you look at like the crypto market, I don't know if you noticed it or paid attention to it, but the last day or so, it's been real red, and everything's been dropping a little bit, and the one that's been green and pretty damn green is Flare.
Yeah,
like it's been. I forgot what it was up earlier, but it was like up like 50% yesterday. Like
I was looking at Flare, like I kept showing my wife, I'm like, hey, look, this is the free coin.
Right.
This is the one they gave us.
That's all I was trying to explain to my fiance. She's like, what do you mean it's free? And I was like, I had to explain to her, like, well, they get, we had the XRP and they're doing this like branch of it, and so they airdropped it to us, and it's free money. Like, if we cash out, will we get taxed on it? Yeah. Will we get taxed on it? Yeah, but it's free. So what am I going to complain about? Like, I'm getting taxed off of free money. Cool. I'll pay my 30% capital gains or whatever the frick it is.
Get me. It is what it is.
Like, I'm not sweating that. So yeah,
it's so much.
so we
You know
touched
what
on
I'm
earlier with Citi partnering with Volante, and essentially Volante is a Ripple partner, and they're to use the ISO 20022 messaging system, and like I mean, it essentially
It's kind of like www
yeah
of the internet,
right.
or HTTP.
It's the protocol
It's
for financial
It's a
institutions.
protocol, and they're all going to use it.
Right. So yeah, it's the HTTP for the internet, and they're all using it, and they're all partnered on it. And like you had mentioned, Ripple's on the board of it, and a bunch of their partners. So it's one of those, like, again, the evidence of like everybody's switching over to that, and that's the thing we talked about, Internet of Value and all that stuff. There's protocol, and so it's all trackable. It's all not translucent, transparent.
Yeah.
And that's where the funny part is, you talk about all these nefarious actors and everything, but on the ledger, on the ledger, it's all transparent. That's the funny part, is you never see dudes in movies being nefarious. They always have piles and piles of fucking cash at their house. Like, it's never like they're doing something other shady ass shit.
Well, here's the funny thing. Like, people like, if you don't watch The Simpsons, you might want to pay attention to The Simpsons. But here's the thing.
Ain't that shit crazy?
Look up The Simpsons and Digital Ledger. Okay, yeah. The Simpsons basically broke down what Ripple is doing, and this was like a year or two ago. But listen to it. Like, they have a whole digital ledgers, like singing and talking about money in the computer. But
they
they're
do like a
telling
funny,
you.
Yeah, they do like a funny break off of like the what was that old school the Rock, God, not the Rock, the old school, like the
Jim Parsons. I know Jim Parsons.
Jim Parsons is on it. Yeah, he's Jim Parsons is from Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, he was narrating.
No, but the video where they're showing, and it's like the digital ledger. He's like singing and stuff. It reminds me of like the old school like cartoons they used to do. What was it? The school, not like the
Schoolhouse Rock.
Schoolhouse Rock, yeah.
Yeah,
they kind of like built it like that, but it breaks it down and does it, and it's just funny. Like, again, you talk about The Simpsons, like it makes you go back to think, like, Steve Mnuchin's a producer for movies, huh?
Yeah.
And then you got, like,
look at it,
all this shit with The Simpsons predicting shit.
Look at the movies that Steve Mnuchin has produced. It'll blow your mind. He's a former Treasury Secretary for the last few years, but it'll blow your mind.
But yeah, it makes you sit there and think about it. Like, how are the Simpsons predicting shit and all that? But again, we just can't talk about enough. Like, do your own research. We're obviously here to give you some pointers and point you towards that right direction of who to follow, who to look at, what to read, and obviously just giving news updates. But it's so hard to keep up with. Like we said, there's so much news,
especially now.
Yeah,
like the content creators are making 10 to 25 minute videos and doing 2 to 3 a day every day.
And that's where I've got on. Like, I haven't been watching as much of the videos because it's so time consuming. So
you can read the articles. If you keep up with the articles, like, you'll see the article. That's why I like reading the articles too.
Right.
Like, if
you
I'm
can read them faster,
I'll listen. I'll listen.
Be on Twitter
if I'm multitasking. But it's the news is coming so fast right now. Like, it is just, you're being bombarded, and you feel behind.
Yeah,
and that's why you have to find the time. And I know everybody's, you might still be working, or if you got your kids or whatever the case may be, but you if you can choose to deep dive into, like, and you said this, if you can choose to deep dive into Netflix or whatever the case may be, why not learn about something that can actually potentially improve, the way you live?
Right.
And then the thing is once you get into this, and once you get into something like this, it improves your knowledge of a lot of things.
Yeah. And it's hard too, because I give credit to my fiance. Like, she's like, "What are you looking at?" And I'm like, "Twitter." Like, we'll be watching some TV show, and I'm like, "Sorry," like, I'm like looking up like XRP news or the financial stuff or whatever, but it's like there's so much of it, and it's like, and then you sit there and read the articles, and it again, what rabbit hole do you want to go down? What's really going to, provide you a better life? The comedian on YouTube that you think is funny, so you go watch a bunch of his clips, or some crypto videos that like we've mentioned on here, or go on Twitter and like you said, like we both don't really go on there for commenting and hating on people or doing any of that stuff. We just use it for news, essentially.
Great source of news.
Great source of news. And it's worldwide. That's the incredible part. And you dive into, and you could search everything. Like you could literally go to the search thing, type in XRP, or you could type in, Volante, or you could type in whatever.
And then people are under the impression that, oh, it's just, random dudes, on Twitter. It's like, no, the IMF has a Twitter page. The Fed has a Twitter page. The BIS has a Twitter page.
Yeah.
Like all these institutions and news outlets, and they all have Twitter pages. So you don't necessarily need to search Google or anything like that. It's like just like you said, you punch in what you want to hear and you get it straight from them. And then what you do is you follow them.
Yep.
And if they really intrigue you, you throw on the notification bell,
right?
So you can make sure you can get every time they do something. Let me see.
Yep. Every time they post something, it pops up on your phone with a new post.
And then you don't need the videos from the YouTubers anymore, because you're getting the news yourself, firsthand. Quickly.
And you're making your own decisions, and that's the key we've touched on before. Obviously, we're both in this space, and you turned me on to it, but you flat out where you would give me articles, and you flat out would just be like, just look into it. Still got to look into, or even you like saying stuff like still looking into it. Like we're still learning. That's what we're saying. Like we are by no means experts in this space. Like playing.
And if the shit turns south, we want to know.
Yeah. And so we're looking at, we'll be the first, like we're enough into it that if something were to go south, that we would know. But it's just one of those, like you do your own research and then you feel confident in what you're doing. Yeah. And so
then the price fluctuations don't bother you. It's just like it's all noise. It's all noise. Like you see the start wherever you started at, and then you when you do enough research, you have the picture in your head of what the finish line looks like. But the road, no idea. Yeah. Pitchforks and grenades and landmines, barbed wire, walls, all of it. It's all there. It's there.
Yeah. But
you know what the end road looks like. You know what the end looks like. You got that picture in your head. And the more research you do, then those landmines and walls, they kind of just get smaller and smaller, because then you just see like for instance, back in the day, gold, they confiscated all the gold from the people in the 30s and told them, you guys got to give us your gold and we'll give you $20 for it. Okay. And then they literally, once they confiscated it all, they turned right around, repriced gold to $35
from 20,
and then did whatever the hell they were going to do to it.
Right.
The point of that is these cats are going to do whatever the hell they want to do. And the fact that we are in this opportunity before them, and XRP is open source technology. Now they can stop us from buying it,
right?
And they are, but what's yours is yours,
right? If
you know what I'm saying?
And it's like you said, it's yours. So like the fact that we have some, like they essentially they can't take it from us. So it's one of those, like you said, they're stopping people from buying it at this point because they're trying to and getting people to sell out of it because they're trying to stockpile it. That's truly what we both believe, and a lot of people in the space believe. And it just goes back to when you start diving down and getting into the space, you start seeing all these things. Like you start seeing the distractions. You start seeing the you know, the
Tactics.
lockdowns and the riots in, you know, the Netherlands and, you know, Australia and all these other countries, and it's like it's a global thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you're starting to see all the distractions, and then you start seeing them for distractions, and it's like, okay, what's really going on behind the scenes? And it's the
central bank digital currency here, central bank digital currency here. You
it's
know,
the greatest wealth transfer
ever. And people are just, I mean, and granted, yes, there is a lot going on, and it's, but this, they thrive on the chaos. They keep calling this a great opportunity. How is this an opportunity? We're all suffering, but yet this is an opportunity.
Right.
You understand? And then you got to pay attention to the words, literally to the words they say, because they reiterate carbon zero, like dude at the central bank, cross-border remittances, Benoit Courier at the BIS, cross-border remittances. Like, they're telling you what they're planning to do. Then we read the articles about FedWire with the Ripple partners, or Ripple partners with, you know, 50 central banks, and like this some people, and you know, this is that opportunity. You know, everybody had that opportunity, you know, and this is just me talking. Like, everybody had that opportunity previously where they, you know, could have got into whatever, and they were like, nah, I'll never. And then maybe it popped off, or they had that regret. Like, for me, when I got into this was the shot when I really understood what this was and who was involved with this. And it goes to the top, man. It goes to the top of whoever you might think is running everything on this planet. It goes there. Like, this is going to happen. Once I came to that realization, I was like, I'm not missing this. And then at that point, it was, I need to tell as many people as I can. And I've stressed to everybody, you know, you got to do your own research, and you got to dig into yourself. And then, if you happen to find something that you find that is like, nah, this ain't gonna work, let me know, because I haven't been able to find anything yet.
Yeah. Well, and it goes back to, again, though, to investing in it, and you know, we've touched on, like, you know, we obviously put money that we feel like we can afford to put into it, and essentially at the end of the day, worst case scenario, we're going back to doing exactly what we're doing now anyway. Like, we're working our 9 to 5s. We're putting
back to the other plan
for the families, and we're back to our other plan. We're looking for other ways to hustle. You know, and essentially, this is, and I've touched on this before, and you know, for some people that maybe aren't in the space yet, they're thinking about it. I've just taken this honestly as, like, it's my savings account. Like, instead of putting it in your Wells Fargo savings account, not doing shit. You know, you can put it in crypto. Could you lose some money on it? Yeah, absolutely, you can. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like,
bad investments if you sell.
Right, and seeing your, like we've talked on when XRP went, you know, seeing my money triple, and then seeing it go right back down to where it was not a good feeling. But it's also money that it's like when I always go to Vegas, like, I always take you know, a certain amount of cash, and it's like, if I lose it, I lose it. Like, this is what I have set aside, whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't feel good, but it's not hurting me on my day to day.
You're prepared for it.
Right. And so that's how I feel about the crypto space. Like, you have to be aware of, you know, this is money that I'm not sitting here like, oh, we need it. Like, I can't be putting this in and doing whatever. It's just extra cash flow you have. And like I said, talking about these smaller tokens where it's like, you know, you feel like $20 ain't going to do it. But, you know, if some of these tokens really take off the way we were looking at, and with their utility, like $20 here, $20 there, next, you know, you get up to that.
Stacking.
You keep stacking, you just keep stacking, you keep stacking at these fractional, you know, like XDC is at, you know, fractional of a penny. You know, that has amazing potential. And so it's one of those, like,
hybrid.
You stack that at $20, you know, even if it's $20, if you get paid every 2 weeks and it's $20, you throw at it every 2 weeks, like, that's a lot of fun.
Better than nothing.
That's a lot of token. Like, let's be at $20 at a fraction of a penny. So,
but then with that is once you start doing that research. And a lot of people think, well, I don't have any extra money. You do.
You do.
When you have money for things that are important to you, and just like you have time for, you know, things that are important to you, when you learn what you owe, or when you understand what you hold, or understand the potential of what you hold, and is after the research of it, you see that, oh, it's okay. But you see that whatever, the price is a distraction.
Right.
Straight up. It's a straight up distraction, and it's with the news, and you go back to this to the basis of it, of this coin is not for us. It is a wholesale back end for central bank coin. It's not for us. We were used to get it going and all that kind of stuff, and you know, I'm hearing people, you know, comment about these little buybacks or whatever the case may be, or they'll give us a generous buyback. Yeah, no, I want all the booty. You can take that buyback and shove it. I don't want no parts of that. I want all of it. But they're going to prevent people from purchasing it, and it's happening.
Right.
And if they do open it back up, because ultimately it is open source, if they do open it back up, it ain't going to be at the price it is now.
Yeah, and that's the crazy, and you're seeing it. I mean, we have friends that are scared out of it, you know. So, and again, most of them haven't done the research on it, and it's you sit there and think. You touched on a great thing with the money. Like, I don't have that. I don't have the extra money. Look at what you're spending stuff on. You know, look at
the spending report on your Wells Fargo or B of A.
Right, and go look at your recurring payments, or you know, me and you joked about, like, we used to do FanDuel. And as much as, like, and we were those people, and we got friends, like, as obviously coaches buddies that still do it, and we used to do a group one at $5 a week, and you don't see, I go, it's only $5, but the problem is, me and you would go do basketball, and we would throw it into these lineups because I really like that football lineup
that's
I have
a
on
bomb-ass lineup.
So next thing you know, you're throwing $50-$60 in it, and if not more, and the whole time you're sitting there saying, oh, I don't have money. I don't have the extra money. But you're able to throw that $50 to $100 into FanDuel, or you're able to throw that's the extra money. It's what's important to you. Like, the odds of winning a FanDuel or doing research on something that, like, is happening, and being able to invest your money and turn around, even if that's the crazy part. Even when XRP jumped to whatever it was, 70 whatever cents, like, I could have tripled my money and pulled it out and just been done with it. In reality, like, and I'm not saying that I would have been, or I suggest anybody doing that. Not that, you know, do what you want to do with your own money.
Capital gains taxes.
Right. Well, it's capital gains, but my point is like, I tripled my investment, and so you could, like, I'm going to triple my investment or win $20 on FanDuel. Like,
here's the thing, and a lot of people, this is what a lot of people don't understand, is you don't have to do shit. You don't have to do a freaking thing outside of keep up on what's going on.
Right.
And honestly, that is for your sanity. Because when you know what's going on, like, honestly, I could care less about the price of XRP. And when I say that with full confidence. Like, if it dropped to 2 cents, I would not care. I'd be so happy I'd be buying some. But it wouldn't matter to me, right? Because I understand what's going to happen with this, and that's, you know, and when other people are putting their money in, and I talk to people like, hey man, well, what about this, and then what about this, and I'm just like, it don't matter, I don't care, it doesn't matter, it's noise, because what about this, and all this has been happening over the last damn near 10 years though, the last 10 years with this company. Like, what's been happening? And right now, at the end, you're getting spooked on an SEC charge or lawsuit that Ripple's been meeting with the SEC for the last 7 years. And then the CTO, David Swartz, we heard from him earlier, actually called this 2 years ago when he said, now, what we don't want to happen is you know, a couple years down the line, SEC comes to us and says, well, you've been dealing with the unregistered security. And he was like, well, we've been meeting with you for the last 7 years.
Right.
And lo and behold, what happened?
Well, and again, we touch on like, and it's been spaced around, you know, with obviously with Jay Clayton filing that lawsuit, him leaving, like who's to say Gary Gensler gets in there and he's like, yeah, this doesn't make any sense, and drops the lawsuit. Like you don't know what's going to happen, for one. Two, like I said, it could get dropped, but in all reality, when you sit down and just look at it and it's been explained to people, it would be like suing Shell because they're selling oil. Is like oil is not a security of Shell. Like they use Shell, or they use oil for their.
And they have a boatload of it.
And they got a boatload of it, just like Ripple uses XRP and has a boatload of it, but it's not a security. So that's where, and Brad Garlinghouse has used that explanation multiple times. It would be like suing Mobil for oil, and it just isn't plausible. And so when you sit down and just sit there and look at it, it just doesn't make any sense, especially when, like you said, they've been meeting with them for years. And then when you sit back and look at it, and they're
consumer
still
protection,
and they're still making deals on the back end. They're still
15 deals since that lawsuit.
Yeah, to
like,
me, it's just all noise.
They don't care.
But
and
again,
the rest of the world damn sure don't care.
Right. And again, if you don't do your own research and don't research it, they're going to scare you out. And you're
exactly what they want to do.
You saw that happen for it to go to 70 cents back down to whatever it was, 17. It happened. And so that's the crazy part.
But see that's how it happens, because the euphoria of the XRP holder at that point was so high. And that's when they get you, kind of like the way Bitcoin was, like, oh, it's at 43,000. Is it going to go higher? Is it going to higher? And then it's at $27,000 before you know it.
Yep.
And right now it's in the opposite. Like, people are like, oh my goodness, you know, XRP is down. Is it going to go lower? Is it going to go lower? That's the time when they fire it off.
Right.
Not the thing that was going to happen, because hell, I don't know when that shit's going to happen. But that's how these things work. It seems to work literally in the opposite of the way the masses sentiment is going.
Yeah, because they don't want, you got to think of all those people that you said, the euphoria, like how happy were we? We were so amped, like I couldn't go to bed.
No, yeah, me too.
But it's just the excitement of like, you're seeing the money go up, and it's like, oh, is this it? Like all the research we've done, like, is this it? Is this happening? Like, did they do something? And so you're looking at it and it's like, you just, oh shit, 65, 70, like and it was moving like nobody's business. And so it's one of those, like you said, yeah, man. But it's, again, people,
that's one of those hand grenades on the road, man. I don't, you know what I'm saying? I know what the finish line looks like, but I didn't see that hand grenade coming.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just one of those guys, like, honestly, like, do your research, get into some good projects, like I said,
with utility and partnerships, global partnerships with companies you actually know that are household names, because they're out there.
And there's, like I said, there's tons of them. You go to CoinMarketCap, is it .com, I believe.
Tron's another one.
You could see all the coins on there. You know, you got Polkadot's doing really well. You got Litecoin. You got all these freaking tokens that, and obviously, like, there's only, for us, it's like there's only so much research you can do. We do research on certain stuff and we just kind of dive into it, and that's what we stick to. That's what we stick to. But there's so many more options that you could go with, that, you know, again, there's so much research. Like, Twitter is huge. If you went on to Twitter and just searched whatever token, everything would come up. And so that's by far the easiest thing to do is get it on Twitter and start searching that stuff to get your info, to get your research on if you're thinking about getting into something, and being able to get on, again, passive income. That's for us is like the hugest thing.
Yeah. Passive income.
We
never plan on selling anything.
Yeah. If that's the thing, you know, whether you're just starting out or whatever, but to get to a point where, you know, XRP or some of these other tokens that, you know, they're, like you said, there's other investment opportunities with XLM, VeChain. You know, we have multiple tokens. I have multiple that are passive income essentially, that are set up in PowerPiggy or Nexo.
Here's a little sidebar. Like if you were able to get some, you know, USDC or whatever the case on BitTrue, buying that Flare token right now wouldn't be a bad idea, because there's an airdrop coming for that Flare token.
Yeah, free money.
At probably around May-ish. I'd about to say it's gonna launch a month after. Well, a month after Flare launches, they're gonna do an airdrop based on how much Spark you got. You're gonna get a 1-to-1 of that, and then you exchange the airdrop from the Spark into their yield token, and then when you exchange it to the yield token, that's when you get passive income from that. Right. So again, we are definitely not experts on Flare, but Mickey B. Fresh is somebody, he breaks down Flare and what Flare is. You can also Google search Flare and look at the white paper. The white paper is basically how it runs and all that kind of stuff. They have infographics, the whole nine. But that's what I'm saying. This is the kind of stuff that listen, we're going to it. It like I said before, it's coming. Like Flare is got, you know, it's merged with Litecoin. They're talking about Flare merging with Bitcoin, Flare merging with pretty much any of these coins. And when that happens, that's going to bring all the Bitcoin, the Litecoin, all those into the Spark token that's currently sitting at, I think, $0.25 right now. That when it first dropped was like at 3 cents.
Yeah.
And initially, you know, when it first dropped initially, and understand again, this was the airdrop. This was a free token. And the free token is going to have an airdrop, which is going to allow you to get passive income on the DeFi ring. So when these type of opportunities don't roll around very often, like they're, you know, this is once in 5 lifetimes.
Well, it's like the .com bubble. You know, it's one of those that the changing of technology and everything. There was obviously going to be some, you know, you talk about like getting into Google and Amazon and even, you know, back in the day, probably like, you know, AOL and whatever, you know, getting in at the beginning.
That mentioned millionaires, and that was dealing with data. This is dealing with value,
with actual value. And so again, it's one of those opportunities that it's coming, like you said, not a matter of when, or not a matter of if, but when. And it's coming fast. And that's the thing with, you heard that one clip I said earlier, she mentioned like with COVID and everything happening, like it accelerated everything. And so it just kind of, I don't even know when it's going to happen, but it's going to happen. And it's just, you better get in.
They need it to happen. That's what it is. They need it to happen. Like Brad Khan said, they need it more than we want it. And we want it pretty damn bad.
And you look at the Fed, like, you know, Biden talking about passing a $1.9 trillion stimulus package. So here we go again, printing money. And I saw an article, right? I saw an article like, you know, the Fed, like they don't have the money. And you know, you start creating this inflation and you start seeing all the issues. And then if you switch it over to global reserve token and you CBDCs and all this stuff, and it all level 1-to-1 playing field, like it eliminates everything.
Wipes out the debt.
And so you could go rabbit hole and tinfoil hat on that. But we've talked about that for months, about once this switches over, it wipes out the debt. And you start to see other countries talking about debt jubilees, and you know they're paying off. You know, why do you think they're talking about paying off student debt? And they're talking about like the moratorium on mortgages and rent and all that kind of stuff. Like, where's all the money? We've talked about this. Where's the money from the banks? So, you know, you get your mortgage through Wells Fargo and you get your mortgage moratorium where you're not paying your fucking mortgage. Like, where are they getting their money? Like, so they're in trouble. And so what solves that is switching over to this currency, the digital currency, that's going to eliminate all that issue.
Yeah, because the global debt, I think, is around maybe $200 or $300 trillion or something like that. And like putting a certain coin at a certain price and running it through the IMF where they allocate, you know, certain percentages based off of, you know,
Right.
where you stand in with the global financing and all that kind of stuff. But they could allocate that out, and there's always the question about the escrow, the 50 billion plus that's sitting in that escrow. You know, they're not going to let Ripple hold on to that. I mean, that Ripple will be more powerful than countries, probably be the most powerful country.
And really, the only thing you're hearing about that lawsuit is they're, you know, you keep saying like they're going after the escrow, and it's because
not letting them buy or sell anything out of that escrow. They're not selling any more of that escrow over the counter or anything.
Right.
Like and, personal stacks
so,
is good.
You know, like we've touched on, like Ripple losing the lawsuit, quote unquote, could be potentially like they got to burn the escrow. They can't sell it. They can't do anything with it or whatever.
Give it up.
But that doesn't mean XRP isn't being used.
No.
And so or they got to give it up. And it just becomes, you know, at what point does it happen? Who knows? But when you sit there and look at it, and you can sit there like, oh, there's no way that, you know, there'd be a global reserve currency that they would popularize and clear debt and everything like that. Like you touched on it earlier, they did it with gold. Like when you sit there and buy gold at $20 an ounce, and then overnight jack the price to $35, like you're eliminating your debt. Because now all of a sudden you have gold at $35. Like, so you could sit there and say, "Oh, it would never happen." They've already done it with gold.
Yeah.
And so now we're in a stage of it's digital, and so that's where like people I think are still. It's very tinfoil hatty, and that's what people talk about all the time in the crypto space is like, oh, it's, you know, it's never going to happen. It's cryptocurrency, like whatever, but it still has. And I think the crypto aspect of it, I think, has that tainted kind of thought to it, you know, where if you hear like digital asset, it's not as bad of a as a term, I guess, because the cryptocurrency thing started, that's what it started with. And when you think of crypto, it's like you just think of like, I don't even like the black web or the dark web, you know what I mean? Like that's kind of in my head what I think about when I hear crypto.
Not legit.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
and that's the thing. And see, that kind of ties into the whole, you know, because most people, when this flips, like we touched on this, you touched on this, it's like they're not even going to notice it. So when you think about,
they just won't be hearing from us anymore.
Yeah, seriously. so when you think about things like, so when you think about that person that's not going to do a whole bunch of research and not going to, they just want to, hey, look, I just want to plug and play. Something like Bitcoin for them, like, you know, where they got to try and hold their keys and do all that kind of stuff. They're going to want to say, okay, oh, the bank is doing all this? Cool. Let me just put it and throw it in the bank and just forget about it. And know the security, if they fuck up, if they lose it, that's on them. And then I get compensated for it.
Well, wait a minute. Like, are banks allowed to hold crypto? I forgot.
Oh, well, yeah.
Oh, they are,
OCC,
right?
Yeah, he figured that out in June or July of last year.
And so let's be clear here. Like we've touched on before multiple times, like the banks aren't going to lose in this.
No.
Like they're so at what point do you sit there and start thinking to yourself, like, okay, so the OCC granted it to be okay for federal banks, central banks. So Wells Fargo at some point will be holding Bitcoin and we'll be holding your Bitcoin, your Ethereum, your XRP, whatever you have. And like you just touched on, like, and the masses are going to use that because it's what they're familiar with. They're going to use Wells Fargo, and you're going to buy your Bitcoin and store it at Wells Fargo, and that's going to be the end of it. Whereas, you know, people like us who do a little bit more research and do whatever, will be our own banks with it. But it just goes back to, again, it's kind of like talking about the Cash App thing, as much as it's not a digital currency thing, but talking about being able to get paid and get your direct deposit straight to that Cash App card. You're essentially being your own bank, and the hard part nowadays is you need banks for so much. Like you know what I'm saying? Like you need them for the mortgages, you need them for loans, you need them for this. Whereas the digital asset space is giving you another option.
Taking out the intermediaries and taking out the friction. The banks make the money on the friction. Oh yeah, we got to send it to this bank, and then it goes to this bank, and then it goes to them, and they're all scalping off the top.
Right.
With
Taking their
XRP,
percentages.
XMM. Yeah, they take all that away. It goes from me to it's swapping out to the coin to you in whatever coin you want. There is no talking or, well, we need this, and oh yeah, this guy punched a 7 instead of 8. So because he did that, it got delayed or it got fucked up or whatever the case may be. That's that 6 or 7% fail rate. Like
Right.
this coin is over 60, probably about 65 million transactions and never has messed up.
Yeah.
The banks don't want it. They don't want it to happen. It's going to happen, but that's where they earn all their money, is with the friction, with the bullshit, the fees in this place and that place. And when this happens, like I said, they adapt or they die.
Right.
And then you have these companies like Circle, who I think is behind the Cash App, where they do have a routing number where you can get stuff direct deposited. And then on top of that, they want to give you, well, there's Bitcoin on this, or if you eat fast food, there's 5 or 10% off of this. Or if you go to shopping the next 3 times, we'll give you 10% off of this. Like, they're incentivizing.
And if you notice too, like Wells Fargo and Chase anyway, I have obviously there, but used to use Chase, but the interesting thing of moving to Nebraska, there's like no fucking Chase banks. Go figure. But you could, like, they have those now available on like Chase and Wells Fargo, like if you open your app. But it's like random. I'll let me pull it up real quick. But like, so the Cash App card, like we've touched on, like 10% off at any grocery store. Like, it doesn't matter if it's Vons, Ralph's, like anything, like Hy-Vee out here. Like, you never even heard of Hy-Vee, but that's like a huge market in the Midwest. And so when you start doing stuff like that, or McDonald's 10% off, Starbucks 10% off, like you start doing some of that stuff, and then Wells Fargo, you see it on Wells Fargo. But for me, like Wells Fargo, just looking at it right now, like Lamps Plus, 10% cash back. Like, the fuck, like, really? Lamps Plus? Like, ADT, Casper, like the betting thing, like Men's Warehouse, like their stuff is like so random. The company store, like okay, Jiffy Lube maybe, but if I have to get an oil change,
change, man.
But that's like,
once every 3 months,
right?
Or 6 months now with the synthetic.
Right. But that's the thing, is like when you go look at that, and then you go look at the Cash App card, and it's Wendy's, it's McDonald's, it's Chick-fil-A, it's PlayStation, it's the US Post Office, DoorDash,
it's Bitcoin.
Yeah. And then there's just like CVS, and then there's just like $5 anywhere, $5 off any one purchase, like, or $10 off any one purchase. Like like there's so much more, like you said, Bitcoin. Like, for me anyway, incentive, but it's just so much more use case, where it's like you don't have to like think about it. Like I was talking to my fiance about it, like, oh, we gotta, like, as far as Wells Fargo, or the card, like there's a Chili's one on there, and it's like, oh, if we go to Chili's, we just got to remember to do it. And it's like, first of all, I haven't been to a Chili's since we moved out here. So it's like, unless you go to Chili's on a constant basis, cool. But some of those restaurants, like, you don't, and I'm not saying like I go to McDonald's or Chick-fil-A or anything like that constantly, but I feel like those are just, people use those more often because it's the quick food. And whether it's you're getting your kids stuff or you're going to Chick-fil-A for whatever, like it's more often than you probably going to Chili's, or probably going to Red Robin or something like that. So especially, like, I mean, in your case, or like some of our friends, like you have a couple kids, like going out to dinner at a Chili's or a Red Robin, or even whatever,
It ain't working.
It's pricey.
But being able to go to the grocery store and get that 10% off, or get it 5% back in Bitcoin, or whatever it is back in Bitcoin, that helps.
Right. And the funny thing is you see people, I have friends that they you start seeing it with like, and you see it like the Kevin Hart with the Chase commercials where you can get 3% cash back or whatever. And you start, I have friends that, you know, they pay like all their bills on like their credit card, and then they just pay it off. Like as it comes out, they just, you know, they send the money to the credit card to pay it off because they're getting their 3% cash back or their 2% cash back. So you're making money, which is smart. But when you sit there and think about it, like, you know, why use the credit card at the grocery store and get your 4% or 3% back when I could use the Cash App card and get 10%? Like it, to me, it just doesn't make any sense. It's so easy. Like honestly, it's not complicated. It's literally downloading the app and just following the directions, and then they send you.
And then
the
with
card.
the smartphone, I mean, it's the quick. You know, yeah.
Quick. You don't have to pull the card out. You just, you know,
Don't pull
you hook it
nothing
up to
out,
your iPhone
But
or
the
Android
card
or whatever.
is touchless as well, though.
Yeah, and that's the crazy part with even the Uphold card. Like you getting your 2% cash back on any, or crypto back on any purchase, 1% cash back, and that's the thing with some of the credit cards is it's like you got to remember, oh, it's, you know, it's 2% off groceries, it's 3% at restaurants, it's 1% at a gas station. It fluctuates, and it's harder to keep track of, and that's where I think people, you know, they just pay all their, like I said, I got friends that just pay, literally use the credit cards for everything and just pay it as it comes because it gets you that cash back. So at least you work in the system in that sense. But there's so many other ways. Yeah, so many other better ways. But it again, because I'm new to it, I think it's just kind of odd to me. Like, who knew this was out there? Like, in all honesty, like you could sit there and tell me like I could go get a Cash App card. Like I didn't even know what the hell like Cash App was. Like honestly, like I had heard about it, but I never looked into it. But like you sit there and just look at it and you're like, oh, I could get that. And then I don't even think when we were talking about it, I think it was more of just like a way to hold money. You had said you had a debit card for it. And then I think I was looking at it and saw all the boosts on it.
Yeah, at that point, when I first jumped into the Cash App, I was terrified at the fact or at the potential of these clowns going negative on the interest rate.
Oh, that's right.
So when I thought that was a possibility, I was like, okay, well, I need to start thinking about alternatives to get my money out of the bank. And then that's when I was like, okay, well, then at this point, I need to bleed my Wells Fargo account. Like all BS aside, I want that mug at zeros by the end of the month, because I don't want any money in there, because I'm basically preparing myself for when they go zero interest rates. And if you have money in the bank at the end of the month, then they will take that percentage. And the thing is when we go digital, and we're pretty much digital now, but when we go digital, there's not going to be a place to hide your money or your fiat or whatever the case may be. Because if you got to sit in one of these interest-bearing accounts through, you know, Wells or Citi or B of A or whatever the case may be, and we're at negative interest rates, well, you're paying that tax.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been working on for the last, it's been a minute.
Well,
but that's what I've been working on.
Even when you
no
think
debt,
about it,
no credit, none of that stuff.
You look at these major banks like Bank of America, Chase, Wells Fargo. Obviously, those are like the Citibank, like the major ones across the country. They're incentivizing you to spend your money. Otherwise, they're going to charge you a fee to hold money in it, unless you have a certain amount of cash in there. But and the only reason that is because they want to be able to use your money to go do what they want to do,
whatever they want to do, exactly.
And so if you don't have enough of it, then they need you to spend it so that they could either you're going to spend it and they're not holding it and not having to worry about holding it, or they're going to get some money out of you. And so whether they're charging you whatever, $10, $15, if you're not spending enough of it or swiping your card enough times, because you got to think every time you swipe that card, they're getting a percentage. And so it's just one of those, like, why fuck with them? Like if you got to sit there and like do enough to get to that where you're not having to pay the fee, and then like move it. And like I said, with the Cash App, it's so fucking easy. Like literally doing it in line, moving the money over. It's funny. We're like at the store the other day, and I'm like sitting there and we're watching it pull up, and I'm like, how much do we need to put in? And we're like, almost it's like a game now. Like you sit there and like you're guessing how much it is. You know, you go to the store and you're like, I'm gonna say it's a 120, and then you're like 140. You know what I mean? Like you're just kind of guessing what it is.
Oh,
but literally
I
move
do
it
the
over.
exact same thing.
Move it over in seconds.
Yeah, I'll sit up there and like I'll go ahead and I'll drop my wife exactly what what I give her exactly for the month, to handle the food and all that kind of stuff. But she'll send me to the to the grocery store, whatever the case may be. Like, hey, on the way home, grab whatever the case may be. Like, okay, and same thing. She should just send me the money, and it's there in seconds. You know what I'm saying? And this is like, I'll pull it from the Cash App to pull it from Wells to my Cash App, send it to her, and she got it. So she'll do the shop, to do whatever she needs to do with it. And then whenever she needs me to do something, she'll just pop it right back to me. I'll throw on my boost, get my boost, get it back. And if I have something left over, I can just shoot it right back to her. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But it's literally that easy. And you get a whatever your ID wants to be, your cash ID is a dollar sign and whatever the heck you want it to be. The debit card is jet black, and you put a little signature on it or whatever case. I think they got some new colors now, but
that's a cool looking card.
It's convenient. It works, and then like you said, it's a use case, man. It's actual shit that you would want to use it on. It's practical shit. Going to the grocery store, going to fast food, hell, PlayStation. I think I saw something for Netflix not too long ago. Like, it's actual shit that you would use.
Right. And it's not something that, like, typically obviously we use it to the grocery store every time we go, seems like. And, if we're out or whatever and we're going to, get Chick-fil-A or something, but typically, like, that's all we use it for. And it's one of those, so we're not keeping not keeping a ton of cash on it or anything like that, but we're literally just moving money over to spend the money and to save the money. And that's the crazy part. It's instant. When you sit there and you get your receipt for $150 at the grocery store, and you pull it up on your Cash App, and you see it's $135 because it's an instant, and you had you have the 150 in there to make the payment on it, but you still have $15 left over. That's that kind of like, holy shit. Like, and again, it goes up. And going back to the, I don't have the extra cash, like, to put into crypto or whatever like that. Like
15 right there.
There's 15. Like, even if you just sat there and like, you weren't doing that before, and you're going to be like, all right, well, I'm going to take my 10% that I'm making off of the grocery store every time I go, and I'm going to slide that over to, shit, you could do it on the Cash App card and put it on a Bitcoin if you really wanted to. But you could move that over to Uphold and do it there. And like I said, on Uphold too, if the crypto stuff kind of, you haven't done the research on it or whatever, like, you could put it into gold, you could put it into silver, you could put it,
palladium, platinum,
where you're making money. Obviously, like, it could lose money, but gold and silver are for,
you can invest.
Yeah, you can invest on there.
You can get in the game.
And there's so many options with it now. That's why Uphold for me is like, people talk about Robinhood and all that stuff, but there's no access to it. And so, yeah, you're investing and doing that stuff, and you could do it fractionally, but there's no, like, I got to be able to pull it off. You know what I mean? If I have to. Whereas Uphold, like, you could literally, you have that Uphold card and you could go spend digital silver. Like, you slide it to silver, and just, you don't have to move it to USD. You don't have to do anything like that. Yep.
It does it on its own.
And go swipe it at the store, and it goes.
I wonder what digital asset they're doing or using to do that.
Yeah, go figure. And but the nice thing about Uphold is they're actually keeping track of it for tax purposes for you. And we'll send you that info, so you're not having to keep track of, like, your investment on this and whatever, and how much you're earning or losing or anything. So that's the kind of the nice part about Uphold on there. I just haven't been using it as much, but
yeah, Cash App, man. I feel you.
But yeah.
But the fact of the matter is there are options. Like, unless I forget to do the boost,
Yeah.
Every time I spend money, I'm getting something back.
Mm-hmm. No, I was pissed one time. I totally forgot to put the boost on it. I paid with the Cash App card, and I forgot to put the boost. And I remember walking out, and I looked at the thing, and I'm like, "What the fuck?" And it said I didn't have the boost on it. So
I went to
irritated.
fucking Costco, bro. I went to Costco. Me with my family. I went to Costco and forgot the boost. Yeah, I was pissed.
when that's like the $300 store for a normal size family.
That's the, you know, that's the big boy right there.
Yeah, that's the crazy part. Like Costco, like how many people that you know, like you said, the few people that are listening to this, but of our friends, like everybody goes to fucking Costco. Sam's Club's usually on it, but like Costco, like, you know, the grocery app, it works for it. So you sit there, you know, and that's the running joke. It's the $300 store, the $400 store. Like you end up wandering through there and buying shit you really don't need. And again, you know, you're $300.
But then get that back.
30%.
Go get that back if you can.
$30 off. But I think it's about to do it for tonight, though. Let's get out of here while we're still young and awake, I guess. Appreciate you guys listening to us. This is Al Naha signing off.
Later, man. Later, guys.